So we have our APIs, we have an open source SDK, which is basically making it easier for people who prefer working with Python to search catalogs and order data. But you write the same API request to order data from Airbus than you would to order from BlackSky. You change some of the parameters, but it's the same API, which basically means that the level of integration that you can build with UP42 into your systems, you build it once. And as you decide you need to use more data providers, you don't have to change your integration. You just add some additional parameters and you're good to go.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Problem Solved, a Geoawesome podcast. I'm Muthu, and normally this is the stage where I would say we're also joined by my co-host Alex, but Alex couldn't make it today. He has to take care of his kid. For those of you who are joining us for the first time in this podcast series, Problem Solved focuses on real-world problems and highlights how geospatial technology is solving them. That's why we have the name Problem Solved. So if you're curious about the real-world impact of geospatial data and tools, you've come to the right place. Today is a special episode for me personally because I've known Sean for the longest time. We've been doing a lot of work together, and it's a pleasure to be able to talk to him. So before we go any further, Sean, thanks for joining us. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do at UP42?
Thank you for having me on the podcast today. It's great to be able to finally join you on one, and it's been great to work with you over the last couple of years as well. My name's Sean Wiid. I'm the CEO at UP42. My background is in computer science, and I've been working in geospatial for the last 25 years or so. And for most of that time, I've been working on solving problems with geospatial data across multiple use cases in multiple countries. We founded UP42 back in 2019. This is a corporate venture that was created by Airbus together with BCG Digital Ventures and wrapping it up. And yes, as you mentioned, the entire idea behind UP42 was trying to put a solution to the problem that was seen in the market, that it's very hard to get access to geospatial data. There are so many different data formats, so many different differences between the different operators, different levels of automation on the ordering platforms, different formats, metadata standards, etc. And a lot of the times it's just really difficult for downstream users, especially in smaller companies and startups, etc., to get access to data. And there was a need that was seen is that if we can get the data into the hands of more and more developers, more and more people who are trying to solve real world problems, then not only can we help them solve those problems, but we can also help to grow the overall reach and the overall size of the satellite imagery and geospatial market in general. And so that's the mission we started out on, and that's the mission that we've been working on for the last 6 years or so.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk to a computer scientist turned geoinformatics specialist. So the main problem that we wanted to discuss and focus on and understand how UP42 and Sean's team is solving is the aspect of making access to data easier. And we at Geoawesome recently did a survey asking you, our listeners, and the wider geospatial community, the current question of how long does getting satellite data really take? Okay, we didn't really ask it in such a simple way, but over the last couple of months, we've asked 8 different questions, and over 400 of you have answered this question about how difficult or easy it is getting satellite data. On one side, the EO industry is booming. Every other day, you read the news about a new satellite constellation being launched and a ton of data being available. Unfortunately, the reality of negotiating and acquiring satellite images can be far more complicated. As the day of taping, we had this news release about the satellite imagery over Ukraine and how it's being restricted. So we all know that this is a question not only for individuals and organizations, but even at the level of countries. So our research tells us there's a lot of work. 55% of you told us that frequently or almost always you experience difficulty finding the exact satellite imagery that you're looking for. 40% of the complaints were about intransparent or confusing pricing models. The sense that we get is that it's very frustrating, and there have been blogs after blogs and articles after articles that go into detail about this, and this is the real problem. You are hunting endlessly for the right image, dealing with a complicated pricing strategy, and ordering through a system that was developed much before we got used to ordering things online. So that's quite a few problems wrapped into one. Sean, I know it's a lot to take in and to digest as well. From your experience, do you share these findings? Does it reflect what you also see as Up 42?
Definitely. We experience this every single day because we are living the mission of actually taking those problems on ourselves and making sure that our customers do not have those problems. So I think we probably bear the brunt of all of those challenges because that's exactly the set of challenges that our company has been created to solve. And we had a hypothesis when we started Up 42 that we were solving these problems that you've just mentioned, mainly for smaller companies and for startups and for individual developers or universities or whatever the case may be. But it turns out that these problems are consistent for all kinds of companies, for all kinds of organizations that are using geospatial data or satellite imagery in particular. And we see an increase in um, the need for ordering platforms, for data management platforms across all elements of the industry, whether it's large companies or whether it's government departments or whether it's sort of national programs. There is an increasing number of tenders, commercial discussions, input that we're getting from users that tell us that we would like to have a single platform where we can manage all of our orders across all of the providers, where we can manage all of our data, where we can share it more easily across our organization, where we get visibility into what we've ordered so we don't buy the same stuff 3 times. And where we have single contract and single contact points who can advise us on what the best data acquisition strategy is for our business and for our needs. And this is the thing that we are providing. It's a combination of the technical aspects of removing all of the pain of the technical differences in the ordering process, the APIs, whatever the case may be, the data formats, etc., and also the contact points that you might have. I think you raised a very important point, which is around the fact that this data is quite often not supposed to be available to all people at all times. Different data providers have their own national restrictions that they need to take care of. And if you're acting as a reseller like we are, as like Up42 is, you have to respect all of those rules as well. And think of it as if you're an individual company and you've got to go through individual data providers, you've got to go through that know your customer and approval process multiple times. They're not always the same, but customers coming to Up42, they have one contract, they go through the KYC process one time, and then they're approved for the data sets that they're able to have access to when such approval is required. Obviously, there are data sets that do not require additional approval. But I think it's also important for people to understand that there is complexity in this industry because of the fact that you need to be responsible with the data, and the satellite providers have an obligation to implement these rules and these restrictions because it can be very detrimental if the data gets into the wrong hands.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect that probably skipped the minds of most of us until the
Absolutely.
last week.
Yeah.
But when we look at it, I think in terms of the regular problems or the problems that keep getting mentioned all the time, there are pretty much three things. It's make pricing easy for me to understand, make the data platform easy for me to access and use, and make sure that the data quality is there so that I know that I can expect the data to be clean, cloud free if it's optical imagery, and then let's get started from there. So let's dive a bit more into the pricing aspect of it. I do understand that as Up42, you don't get to decide the pricing because you're a marketplace, and at the end of the day, the data sellers are the one that are deciding it. But why is it so difficult to achieve pricing transparency in the satellite imagery market?
I think it is just fundamentally complex, right? And I'm not so sure that it's transparency is the problem more than complexity. And I think there's several dimensions to this. So I think I'll break this down into sort of 4 pieces, right? I think the first problem is that there are a variety of options, even within one sensor. If you look at just one constellation, you have archive, you have tasking, priority tasking, you have mono, stereo, tri-stereo, one source repeated, different processing levels. And of course, every single product company is going to look at the range of options that they're able to offer a consumer, and they're going to decide on how to bundle that as a product. And the chances that you're going to have different constellations with the same dimensions and the same capabilities, plus on top of that, people who make the same decisions about how to bundle that, it's basically zero, right? So naturally, you get this sort of cross product of all of the different options across satellite providers and across different constellations that end up just creating a lot of different price points. And of course, the satellite operators, they're trying to maximize as much as they can the balance between selling the most as easily as possible to as many people, but also obviously maximizing their own revenue and their own margins. I mean, that's natural. Every single business does that. So I think there's just naturally a problem in the overall number of options that you have available to you and how they're priced in the market today. So that's complex, right? Then of course you have the issue of volume. Now, the satellite imagery market is well known for being a volume game. There are very healthy discounts and price points that can be reached when you're at scale. If you're not at scale, you don't get the volume discounts. But if you are at scale and you're making significant commitments, then you do have quite some scale efficiencies coming into the pricing as well. And that's not easy to represent when you already have the complexity of all of the different options in place. Then the next one is around and it's a little bit more sensitive. I don't have direct experience and knowledge in this, but what I've heard from the market is that a lot of the satellite operators have government contracts that are sort of tied to the commercial pricing. And if they mess around too much with the commercial pricing, then it also affects their long-standing contracts with governments. And of course, that's a very difficult thing to do. So they have a lot to lose, and they have, and in many cases, no ability to separate the commercial pricing from what's happening on the government market. And we all know that the government and defense and intelligence market, that's the largest part of our market, and you're not going to do anything as a satellite operator to break these things. So I think those are three of the sort of primary price related issues. And then the final issue that comes on top of that is really around the licensing terms. And of course, we have companies like Umbra who are really taking things forward and by putting things under Creative Commons license, putting really taking the industry forward and making it easier to use the data. But in a lot of cases, that's not yet the case. And so you have the additional complexity of trying to understand the licensing models. You are right. There are other platforms that are trying to solve that problem themselves by having single price points for 50 centimeter data or whatever the case may be. We are not doing that because we are deliberately, as part of our strategy, trying to operate as a marketplace, allowing that sort of pricing disparity to come in, because in many cases a customer's decision to choose one data provider over another data provider can be because of the fundamental price points that they see for their project. And so we're not trying to hide that. Where we are trying to solve the problem, though, is by making it as quick and easy as possible for people to see the price for the data they're trying to order. So on our platform, if you're trying to order archive data or if you're placing a tasking order, you get instantaneous feedback on the price estimate specific to your AOI, specific to the configuration that you've set up for that particular tasking order. And so it might not be any less complex behind the scenes in terms of how that price is put together, but at least it's transparent and it's easy for the user to get to that price point as quickly as possible on an order by order basis.
Yeah, there's quite a different list of things to consider here, and I understand that you're not able to provide us concrete information about this, but the aspect that there might be a pricing point tie-in because of governmental contracts or defense contracts is not something that all of us are aware of or even think about, because we kind of take it for granted that it should be as transparent as ordering a pizza on our delivery platforms, which is not the case. On one side, people want transparent pricing, and on the other side, the research that we did, it was also an interesting finding that more often than not, they prefer to order the satellite imagery directly from satellite operators rather than go via a marketplace or a reseller. But at the same time, they are looking to have a user-friendly platform, which is a little bit of a contradictory statement, because I do go to Amazon because of the fact that it's easy, plus it's also transparent pricing, or at least I know what I'm paying for it. So how does UP42 balance the fact of being a marketplace model while also addressing the user's desire for a seamless, direct experience in finding and acquiring satellite data?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Look, we are obviously vested in the idea of an aggregator platform, right? This is clearly our business, and certainly what we hear from our customers and from the engagements that we have, from the things that we see in the market, is that the idea of having an aggregator platform, a single point of contact, is increasing in popularity. And I mean, we know customers that would never switch to a different way of working because the amount of pain that we relieve for them across multiple providers is just too much. And it's not only about the single point of contact, right? So there's different elements of it. So what we do is we provide, first of all, a single contract, right? So our customers have one contract with us, and that allows them to access all of the data sources and capabilities of our platform, as well as all of the sort of tasking, archive, catalog capabilities and data sources that we have available. The second thing is that we have one single user interface. So whether you're ordering archive data from Black Sky or Airbus or Planet, it doesn't matter. You're coming through exactly the same UI. When you're placing a tasking order, it's exactly the same UI. Everything is very consistent, and it's a very seamless and familiar experience because it's the same process. It allows companies to set up the same process, the same procedures to order data from all of the different data providers. And I think a very important part of this is moving from the UI to the API level. So we have our APIs, we have an open source SDK, which is basically making it easier for people who prefer working with Python to search catalogs and order data. But you write the same API request to order data from Airbus than you would to order from Black Sky. You change some of the parameters, but it's the same API, which basically means that the level of integration that you can build with UP42 into your systems, you build it once. And as you decide you need to use more data providers, you don't have to change your integration. You just add some additional parameters and you're good to go. You don't have to do more development work. And when we add new data providers to the platform, they're immediately available to those people who've already integrated our platform into their operations, into their services. And I think this level of automation, this level of support, this level of integration that's possible with a platform like UP42, that is something that you would not get if you went direct to all of the satellite operators yourself. And of course, there are larger companies that have the resources to do that. That's fine. But we have from a lot of our customers things like we are 6 months faster to market with our solution because of all of the heavy lifting that you do on data order processing, checking the data deliveries, getting the metadata format and the data format all into the same format, consistent format that we can pull it into our processing pipelines, saved us 6 months of product delivery time. We've heard also from a customer that, hey, if you weren't there, I'd need to double the size of my engineering team. So these are real world feedback points that we get from our customers about how much value is in our platform in terms of the heavy lifting of managing the entire acquisition process of tasking, archive, imagery, as well as managing all the data processing. And I think it's this consistency that's the key. And companies that are maybe used to working with different satellite operators and haven't really worked with a proper, consistent platform, you'll notice I say platform a lot more often than I say marketplace, because I think that is the more important element. I think customers that have worked with a market with a platform that is able to make this experience consistent across all data providers, across all the elements of the ordering, tracking the order, delivery, and data management process. I don't think they'd want to move back afterwards.
That's an interesting insight. And I think it's also very valid to say if you don't exist, then the engineering team at an end customer is going to double. And this is not good for the industry because this means that only end customers who have the money and the capability to invest and grow their engineering team would then end up using satellite imagery, which then shrinks the entire market. So in a sense, platforms, not marketplaces, that's the right term, like UP42 are helping us grow the geospatial and the Earth observation industry in that sense, which is something that's not necessarily easily quantifiable, but I think it's important to highlight.
Sorry, if I can just give one analogy, right? And this is one thing that I repeat relatively often to try and make a point. We often see companies doing their own development against individual operator APIs or building their own platform, or we see government programs building their own platform to sort of aggregate orders from different companies. And the analogy I always give is like, look, if you wanted to write an email, if you wanted to build a PowerPoint document or a slide presentation, like, are you first going to build your own version of Outlook or Gmail? Are you first going to build your own version of Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Google Slides or whatever the
Right,
case may be? Like, no, you don't. You use existing software because it's been built by people who focus on solving that problem so that you can focus on your problem,
right.
not the problem of the industry. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to solve the problems of the industry at scale in an automatable way so that our customers can focus on their end user problems. And I think it's a very important job in our industry, is to take away that pain so that people can focus on the real world problems. And that's what we are seeing with our customers, that they're able to scale their solutions because they don't have to deal with the nitty-gritty problems that we've solved for them.
I love the example. I think that makes it so much more easier for people to understand the necessity of what you do and what the problem exactly is. And the whole idea of the podcast is to address the problem. So I'm really happy to have an example that makes it easier for everybody to understand. So we've spoken about two of the three things that we found in the survey. The first one being pricing, the second one ease of data access, and we've discussed that in quite a bit of detail and how you also help the engineering teams at the end customer level. The third aspect of it would be getting high quality and reliable data. 50% of the respondents told us that they actually prioritize data quality and resolution over other factors, including delivery speed and pricing. So people are willing to pay a premium for data quality, which means that it's not just about finding the data, but rather finding the data with the right quality, the right accuracy, the right reliability. So, as Up42, what do you think are the hidden challenges that are not obvious when people go about sourcing satellite imagery? And how does this impact the integrity of a platform? Because at the end of the day, you don't sell or you don't control the data, but you sell the data. Plus, you have it on your platform, and it impacts the analysis and the decision making as well. So, how do you go about solving this problem, or how do you address it?
That's a great question. I mean, one thing we've learned is that anything we sell via the platform, it's our problem when there's something wrong with it, right? It's we're the first
Yeah,
point
of
of
course.
contact, and most of the time we have to solve it. So it's certainly something we watch very carefully. And I think the challenge of sort of data quality and reliability, it means different things to almost everyone who's using satellite imagery. Sometimes it's going to be around the georeferencing. Sometimes it's going to be about, did you always pay attention to the cloud cover restrictions that I put in place in the order, or is the incidence angle right? So all these kinds of things. Um, but I think fundamentally, we also see the pattern where reliable data is way more important than the time window, particularly for the larger projects. I mean, project time is obviously important as well, and collection time is obviously important as well. But if you have problems like every time the order comes through, the metadata is different, or the file format's different, um, or basically, I don't know, the cloud mask is missing, or the file naming is different. These are all problems that we've had across different providers in the past. And I tell you, it causes absolute havoc, because a lot of our customers think they are building systems to automatically ingest the data, to build 3D models, to run AI analysis on top of that data, to power their solutions, which are powering multiple customers at the same time. So you need absolute consistency on this across all of those dimensions. And what we've done as part of our platform is, really built a delivery system, which is also starting to check to make sure that all the different missing pieces of the puzzle are there. Obviously, we can't check everything. There are things that still slip through. We are continually improving that. But we're doing a lot of the quality control checks from the basics perspective to make sure that by the time the customer gets the data, many of these topics are solved, and so that the data is consistent. And I think that's a important word as well, is that in many cases, consistency is one of the major definitions of data quality in the eyes of many of our customers. Because if it's not, it just breaks all of the automation and the processes on their side as well. Of course, fundamentally, like the resolution needs to be right, but you know that when you pick your sensor, right? When you pick the constellation and the data source you're going to use, you know what the resolution is going to be. So I think that's a really important part as well. And I think the other element that we see from a data reliability perspective is, especially for large tasking projects, we support customers with a lot of projects over critical infrastructure like railways and power lines, and there's obviously like often tens of thousands of kilometers of lines that need to be covered in a certain period of time. And especially when you're doing stereo capture, that can be very difficult for operators to handle. A lot of things that can get in the way of that. Quite often, weather conditions prevent capturing in time. And there, of course, a big selection criteria is to what degree can the operator be always has a track record of reliably delivering the tasking projects within a certain time period and on time in general. But the problem there is that it's not always in the operator's control, right? There are really sometimes weather-related issues or satellite goes out, whatever the case may be. And this is where UP42 brings in an additional level of robustness and reliability into our customers' operations. So a lot of the time, what happens is that you get to the end of a project or midway through the project, you see there's some areas that might not be captured. We can always switch to a comparable constellation to task that constellation and finish the project using a different constellation. And the customer doesn't really need to do anything. They've already got the contract in place. They've already got the integrations in place. And that sort of robustness and redundancy that UP42 brings into those kinds of projects has helped us to literally save customer projects on multiple occasions. Going from, okay, this project is not going to work at all, we might get 50% through, all the way through to, okay, we've just delivered the biggest project on time in the company's history, and that has led to our next funding round, for example. These are some of the things that have happened as a result of this additional redundancy and robustness we bring into it. And I think that is an important part as well of the whole reliability topic.
Yeah, data reliability has always been important, and I think it's increasing in importance. And we had a conversation with Peter Rabley, the CEO at OGC, and one of the things that Peter mentioned right at the end of the episode with him was that he believes that we are entering the era where map data is not just meant for human consumption and analysis, but rather for consumption by AI agents. And that means that we need to focus more on standardization of access and data reliability issues as well. So in a sense, I kind of see the curve here in terms of focusing on data reliability and making data access easy through your APIs and enabling automation so that a customer doesn't have to implement the same checks and balances on their end.
100%. This has always been a goal on our side as well. I mean, not necessarily in 2019 when we started the company with AI agents in mind, but certainly we've always had the belief that machine-to-machine consumption of data across the entire chain of ordering and consuming and analyzing and pushing results to customers needed to be automated. And this is why we've positioned ourselves as an API first platform. You can do a lot more with our APIs and our SDK than you can with the user interface intentionally. And we are doing as much as we can to remove all necessity for human in the loop through the end-to-end ordering process. I mean, we've had customers who've placed more than 15,000 orders in a single day. There's no way you can do that via a user interface or via sending an email to say like, hey, this is my AOI. So this is the kind of scale that you need to be able to get to and to support for our existing customer use cases as well as the future use cases that you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm going to try clicking on the same button 15,000 times to see how long I need to
Good luck.
before I can do that.
Yeah.
But jokes aside, Sean, it's been great talking to you. And as we get towards the end of the episode, there is still one thing that we haven't addressed, and that's a little bit of the elephant in the room. There's been some exciting news. There has been news that Up42 is in the process of being acquired by Neospace Group. I know that this is something that you probably can't talk a lot in detail since there is a regulatory process and all things that legally need to happen before you can talk a lot. But I'm sure that there is some details that you could share with us and what we should expect.
Yes, of course. I mean, I can share a little bit more, and obviously a lot of this has been shared in the press releases that we've put out already and is in the public domain. But yes, you're absolutely correct. We're very excited that at the end of November last year we were able to announce the signing of the agreement to purchase Up42 by the Neospace Group. And as you mentioned, there's all sorts of closing conditions pending. So we talk about there's the pending acquisition. But yes, it's a very exciting development for Up42. The Neospace Group was created by the Public Investment Fund in Saudi Arabia with a very long-term and very ambitious goal of growing not only internationally but also making sure that the local ecosystem in the space and geospatial industry in Saudi Arabia is being supported and is developing and growing. And we're looking forward to in the future becoming a part of that plan and part of that strategy. I think what's really key is that it supports on almost a one-to-one basis the original ideas and strategy and intentions of Up42, our international business and the path that we're on remains a key part of the forward-looking plan. And so, we don't expect much to change for our existing customers and partners. In fact, possibly even additional exciting things that can be happening.
Yeah, I was also very excited to see that I think it's like 28 million in funding for entrepreneurs to create solutions in Saudi Arabia. So Space Up is, if you haven't already checked it out, please do, and we will make sure to share the link in the description as well. So quick fire question, and then we let you go. I know you've got a busy schedule, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's really great to see how much Up42 has transformed over the years. And in a sense, 5 years later, the survey still makes it abundantly clear that the purpose and why you started the company is still valuable, and that's a problem that needs to be solved at scale. I mean, you are solving it, and I think more awareness and users are required to take it to a next level as well. Before you go, I know it's going to be difficult, but in one sentence, what would you like to tell people listening to look out for new features that will make their life easier when it comes to finding satellite imagery? It could be anything. It could be your favorite feature, to the next
Uh,
useful functionality, or something that your product team doesn't want you to announce yet.
well, I mean, there's so much happening and so many new things coming out all the time. Between uh, pushing on a lot more automation for rush tasking and new data providers, and there's a lot. But I think maybe what I'll do is I'll call out two things. One, because it relates to some of the problems that we mentioned earlier, and two, because I just love it. So the first thing is, we spoke about how difficult it is to keep track of tasking orders and delivery, and figure out what needs to happen at the end of the project if you need to change your plan. So one of the cool features that we built is that not only are we giving you real-time feedback into how much of your project has been delivered when you've put through a tasking order, or a sort of multi-AOI tasking order even, and delivering that in sort of as it's coming in from the data provider and telling you exactly how much is left, which is great on its own. But at any point in time, you can always search the archive for the missing pieces with one click of a
Right.
button across all
Cool.
providers. So it's a really nice way of saying, okay, I see a risk in my project. Can I fix it with archive imagery in a pinch? And then you immediately get that view from the catalog just with one click of a button. And this is pretty cool. And that's been something that
That's
we've
really
got good
cool.
feedback on from our customers. The second thing that I'd like to mention, and this is one that I'm really happy about, the team has been working on very hard, and it's really looks good, is we've just finished rolling out a complete revamp of all of the mapping functionality in the platform, switching over to Mapbox, which lays the foundation for a lot of very exciting things coming in the future. Hugely improved mapping experience, search experience, visualization experience than what we had before. And it looks beautiful. So go check it out.
Yeah, that's a hint for those of you who are wondering where Sean's origins are. He might be working at an Earth observation company, but he still has his hat with mapping as well.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's certainly it's hard to get it out your system, right?
Yeah, I completely understand that, and I share that as well. Sean, thanks a lot for joining us today, and thank you for explaining how you're going about solving the problem of making access to satellite data easier and transparent. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Subscribe to the podcast, Problem Solved, the Geoawesome podcast, for more stories about geospatial innovation. And see you next time.
Muthu, thank you very much for having me. It's been great today. Thank you. Bye bye.